guys, welcome to JavaScript Batch 1 Day 5. How are you all? Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you guys are doing great. Alright, don't forget to fill your attendance. I'll keep it in the chat. Okay, are you guys excited for today's class? I see many of them are excited. Okay. Hi Saurabh sir, good evening.
Good evening, Vani. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, sir. Okay, sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vani.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so Hi, guys. Hello, everyone. Hope you had a fun weekend. Uh, Anyways, it was only Sunday, but I hope you enjoyed it. And now let's get back to the JavaScript because today we are having a really interesting session because today is going to be all about DOM manipulation and functions. So basically, today we are actually going to work with some HTML and JavaScript both together, right? So we're going to mix a lot of it. We're going to call functions. I'm also going to show you how to click on buttons and how to perform functionality. So yes, we have a lot of things today. Okay, so let's start then without wasting any time, right? So I hope you remember last time we completed, like I just showed you a hint of DOM manipulation, right? I actually showed you how to fetch elements, how to like what you say, select element using its tag name in JavaScript, right? So we learned about this get elements by tag name, and we also understood that this returns an array, right? It returns an array of elements, right? So let's continue from there. Let's learn like the new methods, the other methods that are there to fetch elements, and let's see which one is best for which what particular situation, right? So let's differ between them. So let's try to understand all of it now. Okay, so let me run the page for you again, and we'll just continue from there. Good evening, Shreyash. So let's copy the path and let me get a browser for you. Again, I'm using Chrome. You can use anything you like. I'll just not suggest Internet Explorer, but yes, anything you like. Okay. And also open the console so that if there are any warnings or errors, we can see it, right? Okay. So here it is. We see that, right? We have printed our H1 element here, right? Because if you see the code in this, we have fetched all the H1 elements that are there, and we have stored in ELE variable that eventually becomes a array of H1 elements. And then we have printed the first H1 from that array, right? Okay, so I hope everyone is clear with this. Should we move ahead, guys? Should we start with this? Okay. Now, there's one thing I want to tell you, right? There's one thing that is very important when you actually work with elements. So now, let's say, okay, let's comment these two lines. Let's comment these two lines and let's print the whole array instead of a single element now. Okay. Now, see, now what I'm doing here is I'm fetching all the H1 elements. So document.get elements by tag name H1. So basically it will fetch all the H1 elements for me. And basically we know that get elements by tag name gives the array of elements, right? And we are storing that array of elements in ELE and printing it, right? Now, what I want to show you here is what if I don't have multiple H1s? What if I only have a single H1? What will happen in that case? So now let's see. Let's actually see this. So let's go on, refresh the page and see. And now you can see. So even if you have only one element, document.get elements by tag name still gives you an array, right? So it does not matter if you have one element or 10 elements or 1,000 elements, get elements by tag name will always give you an array. So now we are getting an array or HTML collection with only one element that will be on 0th index, right? But still, remember, this is an array. So don't think like, okay, if I have only one element, I can directly work. It still is an array, right? So ELE basically in this case also is an array. And if I want to work on element, I again have to go on and fetch it with the help of the index. So I just want you to like know this because this is very important, because a lot of people think if there is only one element, why is there a need of an array? So remember this. This is how get elements by tag name works, because that function feels that, okay, for a single tag name, there can be a lot of elements, right? So it's playing safe. It will always give you an array. Okay. So I hope everyone is cleared now. So you can actually see the name. get elements, right? Get elements. So basically it is made to fetch multiple elements. Okay, I hope everyone is cleared now, guys. I hope everyone is cleared with this. Okay, now let's move ahead and let's see how to fetch elements using class name if I don't want to fetch elements using tag name, right? So let's see. Okay, so I'll just comment this out so that you have this document, and I'll just write, okay, getting elements by tag name. So I'll just comment this out so you'll have it. Okay, and after that, let's move ahead and let's do getting elements by class name. And I hope you people understand inner text now, right? I hope you understand inner text. So that is what we learn, and don't worry, we'll still learn. Now you just have to remember one thing. Like there is one, you can say, mantra for like understanding all of this. That is, once you fetch the element, all the process is same, right? Like there are various methods of fetching element. Either you can perform a query selector, or you can perform a get elements by tag name, or by class name, or by id. Once you have got the element, you can do like things like what I mean to say here is, once you fetch the element, you can perform the same operations that you do everywhere. So let's say you fetch an element using tag name. So whatever operations you can perform there with on the elements, you can also perform when you fetch it with class name. You can also perform when you fetch it with id, or you can also perform if you fetch it with some other method. The most important thing here is you just have to fetch the element. Once you have got the element, all the operations are same. Okay, one, right, Srinivas? The size of the array will be one. If there is only one element, then the size of the array will be one, right, Srinivas? Right? If I have only one element in my array, that basically means the size of my array or the length of my array is one, right? Simple. Okay, now let's move ahead. Let's try it with you using class name. So let's say instead of h1, let's take something else. Let's see. Let's say we have this what do you call ul, right? Or instead of ul, let's actually go for table, right? So let's say we have table, right? I'm working with table because I want to show you something after some time. That's why I'm having a table here. And I hope everyone knows what a table in HTML is, right? I hope the first day I told you people to learn a little bit of HTML. So table is one of the basic components in HTML, right? Okay. Now let's create few things in it. So t head, right? I hope everyone knows this basic table things. So now I have a tr, that's for row. So if you don't know table, don't worry, it's very simple thing. Okay, so if like for people who don't know table at all, I'll just tell you, table tag is something that basically helps you to create a table, create a table format in web page, right? So t head is basically the heading part of the table where you specify the column names, and after that t head you have a t body where you specify the actual data of the table. So this is how it works. So you have table tag that specifies that it is a table, then you have t head that specifies, okay, this is the heading of the table, and then you have t body where all your data goes on. And now inside t head, I'm basically creating a row. So to create a row, you have to write tr. Tr is basically is used to create a row. So that is like that stands for table row. And inside that, to create small cells, right? Inside a row, if you want to create cells, but now this is the first row, right? So it is heading cells. That's why we use th. That stands for table heading. That's all. That stands for table heading. So basically, remember, th creates cells. So by tr, you have created a row, and by th, you're creating cells in that, right? So let's say, okay, this is name, something like that. Okay, name. Then you have this what do you call, let's say age, and then you have this, what do you call, let's say planet, right? Something like that, planet. Okay, cool. Now let's see the output actually so that you can easily understand. Now see it here. I have got a single row, and in that I have got three cells, right? Name, age, planet. Okay, and now see, but you can't see a border, and without border you can't tell that this is a perfect table. So to create a border in your table tag, you just have an attribute named border. So just go on and write border and just say 1. This is the thickness of the border, right? This is the thickness of the border. So border 1, and here you go, right? So a very basic table. Now there are a lot of properties about tables, why this gap comes here, why everything, but I can't tell you that right now because this is exactly like the session that belongs to JavaScript. That's why I'm not teaching a lot of HTML here, but still I'm explaining you the table, right? But I actually want you people to go on and learn at least some basics of HTML, right? Please go on and learn. That will help you. Okay. So now I have a table with name, age, and planet. I'll also tell you how to remove these gaps. These gaps are nothing but cell spacing. These are the spaces between cells. So if you want to remove it, you can just go on and just go inside table and say cell spacing. Okay, so cell spacing. Sometimes the hint don't come up, so you just have to write it by yourself. So cell spacing equals 0. So I will not have like any cell spacing in that. Okay, so I hope it's clear. So now I don't have any cell spacing. Cool. Now let's go on and create the body. That is the actual data. So now again, I have to create rows. I have body, right? So for multiple data, I have to again create rows. So again, to create a row, you have tr. And inside tr now you're not going to create heading cells. You're going to create normal cells that only hold data. So for that, you have td, that stands for table data. So instead of th, for heading, we use th. What th does is makes the text bold and big, right? What td will do, it will just like keep the text normal. So td, right? So let's say first element I'm creating in the first row, I have Thor's data. So I have Thor as name and age is, let's say, 1500. Okay. And then you have this, what you can call, what is a planet, right? So let's write Asgard. Okay. So now you'll see that I have got one more row, okay, that has other actual data, something like this. Okay. So it's very simple. Now, if I want, I can add as many rows as possible. So tr, I just copy the whole tr and paste it after the tr. So it's like a new tr. And let's say I write, okay, I just want to write Iron Man. And let's say I just go on and write 37 or maybe 46, something like that. And planet is Earth. So now you'll see I have actually two data, two rows, right? So if you see in HTML, when you create table, you actually don't write any code for creating columns. You create rows, and inside that row, you create cells with the help of th or td. You don't create columns. Columns are created by default. Like when you create the same amount of tds and th in the all the rows, column the structure the column structure is created by default. So you don't intend to create columns in here. You just create rows and cells, right? Columns are created by default for you, right? Yes, you can do anything. If you know, like Aditi, if we have CSS, you can actually change anything in this. But right now I'm not teaching you CSS, right? So we'll just keep this table simple for now. But yes, I'll apply some CSS after some time, so don't worry about it. But that's why I said in the first lecture, right? That's what I said. Go and at least learn a little bit of HTML and CSS, so that if I do anything, like just okay, I just go and apply some style, you should easily understand it. Right now I can't tell if I just go on and apply CSS if everyone understands it or not, right? So that's it. But yes, you can change the data size. Don't worry about it. Everything is possible here. If you want like a little bit of it, you can just go on and apply a basic cell padding in here, right? So cell padding, I can just go on and write cell padding 10. So it actually it will, yeah. So this is how it works, right? I hope it is cleared, guys. I hope it is cleared. So now let's move ahead to the actual JavaScript part. Now I wanted to fetch elements using class name. So let's say I just go on and give class to the age td. So let's say this is a class named age. Okay, so I gave a class, and let's also give this td a class named age. So now I have two elements. Td is an element, right? Here td is a very simple element for which I have given the class age. Now let's see how to fetch elements using class name, right? So let's go on and again write, okay, var ele equals document again, because I'm going to fetch like whatever elements you fetch, you're going to fetch it from document. That's why document is very important. So document. Now I'm not going to write get elements by tag name. What I'm going to write here is get elements by class name. Get elements by class name. And again, you can see here it is elements. Like it's not like it's just a simple understanding that if you see that there is elements, that basically says that okay, this function is going to help you to return multiple elements. This function is going to basically return multiple elements, something like that. So again, you can see document.get elements by class name. That again says that this get elements by class name function returns multiple elements. And yes, because you can give multiple class names. So let's just write age. So basically, I want to fetch all the elements who have class age. That's all. Who have class age. And right now I have two elements that are having class age. Now let's just print it. And again, you should understand that document.get elements by class name also gives you an array of elements. That's all. So let's see. ELE, I should get an array of two elements, right? Because two TDs have class name age. Let's see. Let's just open the console properly and refresh the page. And again, you can see I have a HTML collection, and again in that I have two elements. But right now you can see I'm getting TD that basically says what is the element and what is the class dot age. Classes are denoted by dots. That's why you have dot here. Don't worry at all. That's just a denotation that you use in HTML and CSS to denote classes. Dot. So you can see TD dot age. TD. So you have fetched two elements, right? Both are TDs and both have dot age classes. And yes, exactly, both have age classes. That's why they have been fetched, because I have wrote, right, get elements by class name age. So that's all. I have fetched two elements that have class age, and both are TDs in this case. They can also be like this. One is TD, one is H1, one is P, one is div, right? Any element that has a class age will be fetched in this case. And remember, get elements by class name also returns an array. And same thing, actually same like get elements by tag name. Even if there is single element, it will give you an array because it is made to return multiple elements. So even if it is like now you can see I only have a single element with the class age, but it will still return an array. Even if it is a single element, it will still give you an array. Okay, so get elements by tag name and get elements by class name both give you an array, right? So I hope it is cleared now, guys. Everyone, I hope it is cleared. Everyone, please let me know, guys. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, and now see, so let's do one thing. Let's again give it the class age so that I can have two elements. And now again, it's just a matter of getting an element. Now actually ELE is the array. You cannot work on ELE. ELE is the array of elements. ELE is not the element. Just remember this thing. You can apply all the manipulation on the element, right? So don't, like, a lot of people, like, even if you know, still a lot of people go on and do this mistake. The problem is a lot of people think that, okay, fine, ELE in this case is the element, so I can go and apply all the DOM manipulation on the ELE. Never do that. You have to understand ELE is the array of elements. ELE is the array. You cannot, ELE is not the HTML element. ELE is the array that is holding the elements. So to work with DOM manipulation, you have to actually fetch the element. So basically ELE is the array. Now if I want the element, okay, I'll write ELE of 0 so that I can get the first element, right? And let's see, refresh, and now see I have directly the TD, the actual element, and now actually I can perform anything that I want, right? So now let's do this. Let's go on and change the text that is inside that element. So ELE of 0 dot, again same thing, inner text equals, right? Cool. So ELE of 0 dot inner text, basically I'm changing whatever text is inside that. And ELE of 0, right, that means the first element. So right now you can see we have fetched this one, right? So currently it is 1500, right? Because I haven't changed it yet. So now what I'll do, on load, make ELA of 0. That means the first elements, whatever the text inside like present, remove that and make it, let's say, 89, right? Let's see. So basically I know that this JavaScript code is going to be executed on load. So by HTML I have given it 1500, but when JavaScript loads, it will change to 89. Simple, because this code that I have wrote here is also working on load, right? There's no setup like, okay, you should only work after 5 seconds or 2 seconds. This code is also working on load. So let's see. And here you go. See, it's 89. I hope it is cleared. Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared? Okay, now there's one more thing about inner text. So this is how you change inner text. Now, I hope you understand what is inner text now, right? Abhishek, the use of DOM manipulation is that happens anything on the web page, right? When you click, a pop-up appears, change animation and everything. That is example of DOM manipulation, Abhishek. Are we cleared? Okay. So now I want to tell you one more thing. Now see, ELE of when I now yeah, I hope you've understood what is inner text now, right? Whatever is between the tags, that is the inner text. Whatever text is between the opening and closing tags, that is the inner text. Now, this is how you change the inner text, right? What you write, the element dot inner text equal to something. Now, if you need, you can also get the inner text. If you want to only like see, you don't want to change it, you only want to see, what you can do, you can just fetch it. Like, okay, fine, I want to see what is inside that. That's all. So I just want to print, okay, console.log ELE of 0 dot inner text. So now I'm not changing the inner text. I'm just getting whatever there is, right? So now I'm not changing it to 29. And what is the inner text currently? It's 1500. So I should be printing 1500 on the console now, right? So I'm just saying, okay, fine, get me the inner text. I just want to see what is in there, right? So that's how you do it. I'm not changing. So if you apply equal to and assign something, that basically means you're changing it, you're setting it. And if you just write it normally, you're getting it. You want to see it, what is there. That's how most of the things work in JavaScript. You have to write the same thing to get and set both. So if you just want to set, you just apply equal to something else that will set the data. And if you just want to get, see it, just write it as it is. You don't have to apply equal to and everything, and you will get it. That's all. And now see, I have got 1500 on the console, right? Just to tell you again, see, if I just write this, that basically means I'm trying to get it. And if I try to assign something, that means I'm trying to change it, I'm trying to set it. That's how it works. That's all. And if I just write this, I'm trying to get the value, I want to see it, I want to fetch it. No, Shreyash, it will not be changed in the HTML file. Nothing changes in your file. Your code will not be changed. It's just a temporary change on the browser. Your code will not change in this case, right? JavaScript will not go and change your code. JavaScript, that's why I said, right? JavaScript manipulates the DOM, right? So what happens? Browser understood your code and created a tree and created the output for you. JavaScript is working on that tree, not your code. Remember this, JavaScript is working on that tree, right? Not your code. So JavaScript is not actually editing your code. It's just editing that tree, and that's why you can see the changes in output. Your code is still same, right? Okay, no, there was no lecture yesterday. Yesterday was holiday. Okay. So now I hope you have understood of, so most of the things work like this in JavaScript. You can either apply equal to and change it, and if you don't want, don't apply any assignment and just fetch it, you can see it. Okay, are we cleared? .html is a property in jQuery story. It's not a property in JavaScript. So yes, if you want to use .html, you have to go to jQuery. Okay, let's move ahead now. Let's move ahead. Now, I hope now you have understood document.getElements by class name. Now let's move ahead and let's also see one of the like most used way of fetching the elements. Like another way, but one of the most used. Now let's say I have what you call a p, right? A p tag. And let's say you just have some content in it, like, okay, hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript, something like that, right? So I just want to show you one more way of fetching. So now let's say I'm not going to fetch my element using class name. So there's actually one more identifier that you can apply to elements in HTML, that is ID. You should never use it, but remember, when you want to work with JavaScript, it's fine. When you want to work with CSS, try to avoid IDs. If you apply your styles using ID, I'll suggest you to not use it to apply styles. Okay. So ID only for JavaScript, you should use IDs. Now, I would have told you the uses of ID and when to apply and when to not apply, but that will take a lot of time. So let's just do it for now. Okay. So let's write, okay, ID, let's say para. Now let's try to fetch an element using ID. And never give, now there is a restriction for ID. You should never give the same ID to multiple elements. That basically means what W3C or what HTML says that you should only give a single ID to a single element, right? So remember this. That's why I suggest you to not use it for writing for CSS purposes. Never use ID for CSS purposes because it is for great uniqueness, right? You can only give a ID to a single element. You can never repeat the same ID for different element. That's the restriction. That's why you should never use ID for CSS purposes. Yes. No, there's no ID is just a selector. So there is like nothing special about it. It's just a selector, but it's for the like best kind of uniqueness because you can only give id once. So if you give an id to an element, you cannot give that same id to another element. So that id basically specifies when you want to work with that element, right? And if it has a lot of class names similar to other ones, if it has a tag name similar to every other element, that's when id comes into play. If you want to apply some kind of uniqueness to that element, you just give an id so that you can uniquely identify it. You just give some name that you're never going to give to someone else. That's all. Okay, I hope it is cleared. Okay, now let's move ahead. Now again say, let's say var ele, and now let's fetch element using an id. And don't worry guys, class name id, class and id both are selectors. It's just you can give same class name to multiple elements because it is made for that, so that you can easily apply some css on multiple elements at one time. An id is made for uniqueness so that you can easily uniquely identify any element. If you want to give a element a name, and so that you want to work in future, you want to work with that name in future, right? And you don't want that element, you don't want that name to be used by anyone else, so that you give id, so that by mistakenly also you never do it. If you do it, it will give you an error that okay fine, you cannot give same ids to multiple elements. So it's only for uniqueness, that's all. It's again same like class, it's just a selector that you'll use to apply some style of to use to fetch that particular element in javascript. That's all. Okay. Yes, Shravan, that is actually a really great thing. You should again, in JavaScript you can also work with CSS, and you can also work with classes. But yes, it's better to go for IDs when you're working with JavaScript, right? Actually, it's not like that. I'll tell you when to use IDs. Don't worry, I'll tell you. I'll actually explain that thing. Don't worry. So now let's do this. Get element by ID. Now you can directly see the difference. In class name and in tag name it was get elements, but in javascript it is get element. That basically means that get element by id is not going to return multiple elements, is not going to give you an array. It will directly give you an element because it understands that if you're a good coder, if you're a proper coder, then you're never going to give same ids to multiple element. You will only have a single element with that id. That's why it has get element, right? Because it is always going to give only a single element. Now let's see. So document.get element by ID, and my ID was para. Now let's see. Now if you remember, class name and tag name both give you an array even if you have single element. But you'll see in here that get element by ID only gives you the element. It is not giving an array. Now you can see it, right? It is never going to give you an array. Get element by ID will directly give you the actual element because IDs are never made for multiple elements. Okay, are we cleared with this? Right? So now you just have to understand it's not like that id is made for javascript and css is made for no, sorry, classes are made for css. It's not like that. You can work with both in css and as well as javascript. It's just like when you work with css, 99% of the times there is a need of writing same css for multiple elements. That's why you go for class names, right? And when you work with javascript, there is a need, like mostly, now I'm not going to say 99% now, mostly there is a need of working on a single element at a time. Mostly there is a need of working with a single element at a time, and that's why you go for ids when you work with javascript. But yes, in javascript there is also a need of working with multiple elements at a time, and that's why you can go for class names. So in javascript, ids and class names both hold equal importance. But in css, classes are like just over, just get a little edge over ids, that's all. Because most of the times you apply same CSS to a lot of elements. That's why in that case, class name is very important. But for JavaScript, ID and class both hold same importance, right? So just you have to understand this. That's all. Okay, ID is actually everywhere. Like even if I hope that you have learned SQL, right? When you work with SQL, when you create records, you also have IDs for them, so that that record can be uniquely identified. Let's say like this: when you work with SQL, when you create a table, right, and you want to store user data, why we have IDs? Because the user name can be same, right? User, let's say, age can be same, right? So a lot of things can become common at some point of time, but that's why we have IDs, so that there is something that actually uniquely identifies that particular data, so that no one matches it, right? So that's why we have ID. Exactly, primary key. If you have learned SQL, don't worry. For people who have like never learned SQL, it's totally fine. Just remember IDs for uniqueness. That's all. Okay, so now I hope it's understandable. Now let's move ahead. Let's move ahead now. So you can see I have fetched the element. Now let's do one thing. Now, as I was saying, once you have got the element, you can do the same things. Now, whatever you can do on this ELE of 0, when you fetched it using class name, you can also perform on the CLE. Because right now you understand, right? This ELE is not an array. In this case, when you have fetched it using ID, ELE is a single element, right? So whatever you can perform on this ELE of 0, whatever you can perform on this ELE of 1, you can perform all the things on this ELE. So just understand that if I perform something on an element fetched via ID, you can perform the same thing and on an element fetched by class name. Don't think like, okay, you can only perform this thing when you fetch an element by ID, or you can only perform this thing when you fetch an element by class name. It's not like that. Because I'm never gonna like, I'm not gonna show you everything again and again, right? So I'll show you everything maybe on class name or maybe on ID, but you should understand that you can apply the same things on tag name or on class name. Just understand this. Yes, Vignesh, go ahead, ask your doubt. Okay, now let's move ahead to the next thing. Now let's say this is not what you call a P. Let's say this is a div, something like that, right? Let's say this is a div, and let's apply some CSS to it. Okay, let's apply some CSS to it. And for that, for CSS, usually I follow a class. So let's give it a class, and I can actually give it a class as para. That's fine, because they are two different things, ID and class. So if I give same name, don't worry about it. Okay, now I'm writing internal CSS, so I can just go and write, okay, style, and then I want to work with class. Yes, exactly, Astha. Yes, you're right. Yes, we are going to work with other than ELE. Don't worry. It's just for samples, right? Just for sample. What should we do if an ID has multiple lines of data and I only want to change one line of data? If an ID or if an element, how will an ID have data? ID will just have a name that is used to recognize that element, right? Right, Prayas? ID will only have a name that will recognize that we used to recognize the element. That element will have data, right? ID will not have data. Okay, so now I'm applying some CSS. So let's say dot para, and I'm just going to apply some CSS. So I'll just give it a height of, let's say, 200 pixel. Okay, and width. I'm doing a lot of spelling mistakes nowadays. So let's say width of 400 pixels, and let's say background color gray, something like that. Okay, let's see if it is there. Let's see if it is there. And yes, it is there now. You can see it, right? So here's the element. I'll just zoom out a little bit so that you can see it completely. So here is your element, and inside that I have this text: hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript, right? Now what I want to show you here is, see this, because a lot of people are asking what is the difference between what do you call this, inner text and inner HTML. Now let's try to change the text that is present inside the para element, right? So I know that there is hello, welcome to JavaScript. Let's change it. So for that, we just need inner text, right? So ele.inner text equals, let's say, I am, or let's just say that bring me Thanos, something like that. So I have a message, right? Now you can see The text has changed. Normal, right? Inner text. Now, what if I also want to mix some HTML with this? What if I also want to mix some HTML with my text? Let's try it. So I have told, okay, fine, inner text, put this inside my div, put this content inside my div. Let's see and see what I've got. So basically, what inner text does is treats everything as a text. Inner text treats everything as a text. Even if you write HTML tags, it will treat it as a text. Now, if I use inner HTML instead of inner text, so that's the difference. Now, I hope you have understood the meaning of it. Now, let's see actually, then I'll tell you the definition. See, it is treating h1 as h1 and the text as text. So basically, inner HTML is used when you also want to put some HTML, dynamic HTML with your textual content, right? So that's where inner HTML is used. So inner text is only for text and inner HTML is for text and HTML both, right? Are we cleared? Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared? Is the difference between inner text and inner HTML clear to everyone now? Okay, right? So this is the difference, right? This is the difference. So inner text is only for text. So even if you write HTML tags, it will treat it as a text. Inner HTML is for both HTML and text. It understands when where I want to put HTML. So if you internally like, so this is what we're going to use to create dynamic HTML, right? If I want to add a div dynamically, if I want to add a p tag dynamically, if I want to add a table dynamically, I'm going to use inner HTML in future a lot of times. Okay. Now, someone was asking what, how to, instead of like what is happening now in this case, it is removing the old content and adding the new content. That is known as overriding in programming or in maybe normal English. When you remove the old content and add a new one, that is known as overriding. So right now what is happening, inner HTML, inner text, everyone is overriding. They're removing the older data. So basically that is also known as rewriting, right? That is rewriting. So they are rewriting the data. They are rewriting the elements, right? Now, how to add? Because a lot of people are asking, right? How to actually continue, right? The old text will be there and the new text or the new data will be added after that. That is known as appending. Like if you don't say that name, that's fine. I just want to know, like I just want to like people to know what it is called. Now, see, first I taught you how to fetch it, right? If I like just want to see whatever is in there, right? I can just write, okay, ele dot inner HTML. If I just write this, I can actually get whatever is there, right? Let's see, console.log. Let's actually just print it. So right now I'm getting it. So what is inside that? I'm not changing it now, right? I'm not changing it. See, I have hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript. Now I'm only checking it. Okay, whatever HTML or text is inside that div, just get it for me. Let's see if I get it. See, yes, I actually get it. You can see, hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript. Now, if I just go on and try to use this inner HTML equals to, just go on and write, okay, hi. So the old content will be removed and hi will be present there. How to actually continue? So this is what you have to do. See, ele.innerHTML equals to ele.innerHTML plus whatever the content is, because it is string, so plus will basically attach them. It will not going to add because these are not numbers, right? So see what is happening. This inner HTML is not like getting any assignment. It's normally there. So it is going to fetch the data. So it will fetch that, hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript for me. And then plus it will add the hi. And whatever the data is generated, it is getting again assigned to inner HTML. And that's all. Let's see if it is working fine. Let's comment this code and let's see if this is working. I should get hi after my hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript. Refresh. Now you can see this. Hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript, and you also get the hi, right? So that's how you do it. So first, like it works like this. First, you fetch whatever is in there, right? Then add some new content to it, and then again put it back in there only. This is how you work, right? This is how you work. First, you fetch the actual content by like we know that we're going to use the same method to either fetch the content or to set the content. Even if you want to get, you use ely.innerHTML. Even if you want to set, you use ely.innerHTML. It's just the matter of equal to where you assign it. So I'm first fetching ely.innerHTML. I get the content. I just add hi to it and again send it back to ely.innerHTML. And that's all. And yes, now I hope a lot of you have understand this. This looks a lot similar to A equals to A plus B, right? This looks a lot similar to A equals to A plus B, right? So now we have actually learned something for this, right? You can actually write this same thing like this: A plus equal to B. If you remember the first or second session, we learned this operator plus equal to, right? So now what we can do is we can just go on, and instead of writing it this big code, I can just add a plus here. So that's all. It's totally the same thing. It's totally the same thing, right? And I think it should work. Let's see. See the same output. Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared with this? I hope everyone is cleared now, right? So this is how you append, because this is like, this is actually a very important thing because we're going to use it a lot of times. So that's how you do it, right? Line 94 code again. What is your doubt, Abhishek? What is your exact confusion in this case, right? Like I have told you, right, previously, that we're going to use the same thing for getter and setter, right? This is the same thing that we're going to use. Even if I want to fetch whatever is in there inside the ELE, and even if I want to add something in it, even if I want to, like, what is a set something to it, right? It's just about equal to. If I directly use this, if I use this much, that basically means I'm trying to get the data. I'm trying to get the inner HTML of that ELE. And if I do this equal to something, now in this case I'm saying, okay, I'm trying to set some data inside that ELE. That's all. That's all. Right? And I think now the difference between inner HTML and inner text is clear. Inner text is only used for text. And if you use inner HTML, you can also use it for text as well as HTML. Okay? Mohammed, don't spam the chat. I can read your chat, buddy. Don't spam that chat. Okay? Please, Mohammed Wahab, don't spam the chat. Okay? For people who still don't understand the difference, it's very simple. See, if I use inner text, right? And people who are like coming late, see, please just go and like get some minutes back to the video and you can see that, right? Please. So you can just easily write, see, what is the difference? Again, I'm saying inner text, inside inner text, you can only pass text. If you pass some HTML tags, it will also treat it as a text. So if you print this on your browser, h1 text h1 will be printed. H1 will also be printed. It will not be treated as a HTML tag, right? But if I use inner HTML, in that case, it understands, okay, I also have HTML and I also have text. So it will print h1. It will use h1 as a proper tag. It will make my text bold and big and text as normal text. That is the difference, right? Okay. So I hope now you understand. Yes, stud game you strings are concatenated, right? You don't concatenate numbers. Even if you want to concatenate numbers, you again, what you call, convert them in string and then concatenate it. So yes, exactly. Strings are only the things that are concatenated, right? So I hope everyone is clear with this now, right? Now I just theoretically explained the difference. If you just get some minutes back in the video, there I have shown you what is the difference between inner text and inner HTML, right? Okay, now let's move ahead. Let's move ahead, because now we have a lot of things to cover. So I hope now you guys have understood how to fetch elements, right? This is like one of the most important topics. So now I hope you have understood, right, how to fetch elements by tag name, by class name, and by ID. And there is something more as well. You also have query selector, but that is something I'll leave on you people to research and understand. Again, it's totally the same thing. It helps you to fetch the elements. But that is something I want you people to research and understand. It's exactly same. Document.query selector. I just want you people to understand it by yourself. Okay. Nikhil, will the ELE val become an array if you add? No, no, it will never become an array. See, ELE is the element, guys. ELE in this case is the element. How will that become an array? When you fetch by ID, ELE is the element. This gray box, this element is nothing but the ELE, right? ELE is what? See, what you have done, document dot, that's what I say, right? Please at least try to read the code before you ask a doubt, right? Please at least try to read the code once. That is a very important habit to have once you start working for companies. At least try to read the code, right? What is ELE? I'm saying document dot get element by ID para. That means it is gonna get me the element. And what is the para element? Para element is nothing but this div, right? So ELE is what? ELE is this div. In this case, ELE is not array. We have fetched the element by ID, right? And when I say inner HTML and inner text, that basically means I'm talking about the content present inside that element. That basically means I'm talking about this. Whatever is between the opening and closing tag, that is either inner HTML or inner text, right? The content inside the opening and the closing tag. So if I add something with inner HTML or if I add something with inner text, how will my element become an array? Right? That is like nothing. Okay. So please try to understand this. Please try to understand this, right? ELE is this element. If I work with, if I want to work with inner HTML or inner text, that basically means I'm working with this inside of that tag, right? Element will still be the same. Okay. I'm only working with the content of it. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Now I hope you are cleared with inner HTML and inner text, right, guys? I hope we are cleared with inner HTML and inner text, everyone. Everyone, are we cleared with this too? Inner HTML and inner text. Okay. Now let's try to learn one more thing before I can actually show you something. Before I can actually like make something and show you a good assignment or something like that. Some real thing actually. I just want to teach you one more thing. Now, but yes, you will help me in that in the next thing. Now, let's say I have input, right? And let's say this type for this input is text. By default, also it's text, so don't worry. Now let's give it an ID of what you call name, something like that. So now this input is having an ID of name. Okay. Now inside this variable, I want that element. What to write? What to write, guys? In this input variable, I want that element. I want this element. How to fetch this element now? Anyone? How to fetch this element? It's very simple, right? How to fetch this element? Come on, I need answers. Yes, Akash, you can ask any question. That's fine, buddy. You can ask questions. Right? What can I do to fetch the element? Exactly. Document.get element by ID name. And yes, guys, don't, it is case sensitive to do, always look for the case, right? So document.get element by ID. See that camel casing E is capital, B is capital, I is capital. And now name, right? What if, again, one more thing, guys, one more thing. What if I had a class and now how can I fetch the element using the class? Anyone? How can I fetch the element using class? How can I get the element using the class, the actual element? Remember, I'm asking about element. How can I get the element using the class? Let's say I have this I. How can I get the element using the class? It's just like a test, right? Very simple test, theoretical test, right? Okay, we know that I can do this. Document.get elements by class name, right? Document.get elements by class name. But Am I actually getting the class name? Am I actually getting the element, guys? Am I actually getting the element? Is I my element in this case? What I told you, I want the actual element that I can work with, right? So is I my element in this case? Guys, is I my element? No, right? I in this case is an array. Even if there is a single element, you will remember, right? You will remember that get elements by class name gives you an array. So if I want the actual element, this is the element I of 0. So this is the actual element because I have only one element and that will for sure be on the 0th index. So I of 0 is my actual element. So in this case, this input is holding the same element that this I of 0 is holding, right? Just remember this, right? This input is holding the same element that is I of 0 is holding. It's just we have fetched the same element using two different ways. That's why you have to understand. That's the most important thing that you have to understand. How to get to the element, that's all. So now whatever I do on this input, I can also do with this I of 0. But I cannot do this with the I because I is the array, right? Yes, Akash, as I told you, you can ask the question. Okay, okay, now let's move ahead. I just wanted to show you this, that's all. Now let's see if I'm actually able to get the input. So let's just see if I have got the actual element. So let's print it input, right? Let's see. Okay, let's check it out now. So here is the input here, and yes, you can see it in the console. I have got the actual element. Now how to get whatever I write inside this? How to get whatever I write inside this, right? Anyone? Any guesses? Like any guesses? Or like or like we have done it already? Any guesses, or you think that we have done it already? Or can we take help from like something that we have learned till now? Okay, maybe a lot of people from you know it, right? Okay, cool, fine. Okay, guys, everyone who is thinking inner text will not work. As I told you, what is inner text? Inner text and inner HTML are something that is in between the opening tag and the closing tag. Remember this. Inner text and inner HTML are something that is present between the opening tag and the closing tag, the content. And whatever you write inside an input, it's not the inner text or inner HTML, right? It's not the inner text or inner HTML. Remember this thing. Please remember this thing, right? Because see, if I had something like this slash input, and if I write something here, that will be inner text. This will be inner text, not whatever I write inside the text box in the output. That is not inner text. This can be inner text, but we don't write inputs like that because we do. Input is an empty tag. It is never going to have any inner text or inner HTML. Input tags are never going to have any inner text or inner HTML, right? Now if you know that input tag has an attribute that is named value, input tag actually has an attribute. This is a property of input tag. Input tag has an attribute named value, right? And that value attribute actually stores the value of whatever we write here. So actually we can call that attribute and get the value, right? We can actually call that attribute and get the value, right? So let's see. We have to write input dot value, something like this, right? Are we clear with this? Okay, now we can't actually check it. Oh, actually we can check it. Let's give it a value of hello. I just want to show you, right? Now if you see here, see, value is already filled here. You can see it, right? Value is already filled here. That basically means the value attribute is the actual responsible attribute for giving a value to the text box. So basically whatever you write here goes to the value attribute, and we are actually using the value attribute. So you can actually fetch an element dot any of its attribute. In this case, I'm using the value attribute. So let's see it. And now you can see I'm actually getting the value of its whatever the value inside. Right now I'm not writing it, but yes, It's the same thing that I'll write in future, right? So value is the thing that you're going to use. And now what a lot of people get confused with it, that value is like something in JavaScript that helps you to get the value. Value is the attribute that you're calling. Value is the actual attribute that you're calling. It's not a JavaScript thing. It's the attribute that you're calling. So actually, in this case, we are using value, but you can call anything. You can call dot id, dot class, dot any attribute, dot right, dot type, dot anything. In this case, I'm using dot value because I needed the value of it, because I know that in value attributes holds the actual value of the text box, right? So I just want you to know that, okay, you can fetch an element and then by dot notation, you can call any of its attribute. You can call any of its attribute. I also want to show you this. Okay, let's say I say, okay, I want to see its id, so I can just write input dot id. Id is the attribute, right? If you see, id is the property of that tag. See that? Id is the property of that tag. Here it is. Id is a property of this tag, right? And I can actually fetch this. So if you ever want to work, see, I got the name, the value of the id, right? Whatever the id that I have stored there, right? Whatever id I have given. So I just want you to know that, okay, if you have fetched the element, if you have got the element, you can apply dot notation and work with any of its attribute. Work with any of its attribute. Varni, there is some problem with the screen.
Yes, sir. 1 minute, sir. Yeah, you got the screen.
Can we remove this?
No, sir.
No, there is a screen,
No,
right? Attendance progress on the YouTube. How can I remove? How can we remove this? Or we
now
can't?
it's fine, sir. Now screen is visible.
Okay, now it's fine, but I still can't see it on YouTube. Okay, guys, wait for a minute, guys. I think there's some issue. It will go away. It will go away. Just wait for a minute. Now it's okay.
Yes, sir. It's fine now.
I'm like, oh, now it's fine for me. Okay, cool. Okay, so I just wanted to know you that you can get the element and then apply dot notation, and you can actually work with any of its attribute. Dot id, dot anything, dot anything, dot anything, dot class, dot, like if you know that input has a placeholder property, you can also write input dot placeholder in that case. So you can work with any of its property. Are we clear with the concept, guys? So now we also learned that how to work with attribute of an element. And I'll also show you some example. But before that, we have to learn something new now. We have to just stop DOM manipulation for 5 minutes and we have to learn something new before that. But is the concept clear, guys? Is the concept cleared? Are we cleared, everyone? Okay. Value can be changed by using input tag. So in JS, the value given by us is fetched, right? Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. Value, you just have to understand that value is like, it's not like a special property to get the value of data. Value is already an attribute, because a lot of people don't know it, but value is already an attribute of input tag, and you're actually working with that attribute to get the value of that input, right? But I just want you to know that you can work with any attribute. Okay, now this will be actually cleared after the next topic, when I'll show you it, like when I'll show you this thing live, right? So let's comment all of this for a minute before moving on. I should have actually done this earlier, and then I would have showed you this input tag and value thing. That will be much more better actually. Okay, but that's fine. Now let's stop DOM manipulation for a minute. Okay, IDQ. Okay, guys, if you don't understand that thing, don't worry, right? I just want to tell you that you can work with attributes, but don't worry. Let's move ahead. Let's move ahead actually. Then you'll understand it. After some time, you'll understand it after 5 minutes, because I just want you to teach something new that is required for future things, right? So I just wanted to teach something new for now. The next topic that I want to teach you, that I like, for which I'm stopping DOM manipulation for 5 minutes, is functions, right? I promised you in the first lecture, right? I'll be showing you how to create your own functions. right? So that is the topic here. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, yes.
Before moving on to functions, can we have a quiz on DOM manipulation?
I think we haven't learned that much, right? Actually, can we have the quiz at the end, Varni?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, we'll have the quiz at the end.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, so let's move on to functions now. So, what are functions first of all? Function is nothing but a block of code, right? A collection of some lines of code. That's all. That is having a name. A function is nothing but a block of code that is having some name, right? Now, what I want to tell you here is something like this. Let's say, please, guys, focus. Let me open the browser for you so that I can actually make you understand what I'm saying here. Okay. So let's go on Jamboard for some time. Okay. Actually, that was my bad. Like started teaching you how to get values before teaching you functions, right? So let's clear it first. Okay. Now let's say you go on in some code editor and start writing JavaScript, and you just write your code line by line again and again, again and again, again and again, right? Again and again. So you just keep writing your code. Now let's say what is happening is there are a few lines of code that you're using again and again in your code. Let's say there is code like addition of two numbers. There is a code like addition of two numbers that is very, very important code. Okay. And in your program of 1,000 lines, you're going to need it, let's say 5 times. In your code of 1,000 lines, you're going to need to write that addition of two numbers in your code 5 times. Let's say these 3 lines here are that code. And now you're again writing those 3 lines here again. And let's say in your big code, you're again writing that 3 lines here, and you're again writing that 3 lines here. So basically, what I want to say is, let's say you have 1,000 lines of code, and at 5 places, there was a need of writing the code for addition of two numbers, right? And you're writing it again and again. You're writing that code. So these 3 lines are something that are doing that addition of two numbers code. So in here you required it, you wrote it. In here you required that code, you wrote that 3 lines. In here you required that code, you wrote 3 lines here. In here also you required that code, you wrote 3 lines here, right? So basically you wrote exact same code 4 times, right? And that is fine. That still works. That is fine. That still works. You wrote the exact same code 3 times, but that still works, and that is fine. That is not wrong. It's just not the best way. It's not wrong, but it's just not the best way. What you can do to solve it is, you can write those 3 lines only one time here, and let's say you give a name to this block. So this is a block of code that you have wrote separately, and let's say you give it a name named add. So you give it a name. Okay, fine. Wherever I want to use these 3 lines, I'll just write add instead of writing the whole code. Now I have given a name to this block of code, and wherever I want this code, instead of writing the whole code, I'll just write add. So now what you can do is, instead of writing 3 lines here, okay, where is the eraser actually? Or let's, okay, so let's say instead of writing these 3 lines here, what you can just go on and write is add. And same thing here, instead of writing 3 lines, you can just go on write add. Instead of 3 lines, you can just go on and write add, and the same code will be replaced internally. That code will be there only, but it's just you don't have to write it. You will save a lot of time now, right? So let's say if in your code you have 10 lakhs of lines and a lot of files, right? In your project you have 10 lakhs of lines of code and a lot of files, right? And a function is required at 1,000 places. So instead of writing that function, or instead of writing that particular code 1,000 times, you can create a separate block for it, give it a name, and write that name wherever you want, and that code will be there. It's just you don't have to write it now. You don't have to repeat the code again and again. Are we cleared? Are we cleared, guys? So basically it will save your time, and it will basically make lines of code a little less. Your code will be more beautiful, more good looking, because it will be like having less lines. That's all, right? So that's what I'm saying. A function is this. This is a function. A function is nothing but a block of code that is given name, so that you can easily call it wherever you want, right? The wherever you're writing the name, that is known as function calling. That is known as function calling, but you'll understand it once we start writing the code, but that's fine. This is like the general idea of functions. A block of code that is given a name, and now you can call that particular code wherever you write that name. That code will be there. Now you don't have to write it now. You don't have to like write it again and again. You can just write that name and that code will be there, right? So basically it will take less time now. It will make your code more structured and it will look good at the end. It's just like you're reusing a code. You have written the code once and you're using it again and again wherever needed. You're not writing it again and again. You're reusing it. That's all. Okay. Are we clear, everyone? Everyone, are we clear with the concept of functions? Prasant, don't worry. I'll tell you how to take user input. Don't worry. Just focus on the topic right now. Just focus on the topic right now. Are we cleared, guys? Are we cleared with this concept of functions? Okay. Now let's move ahead and let's try to achieve the same thing in JavaScript. Okay. Now let's say you have a very important code like this, where a equals 34, where b equals 45, where c equals, it's just a very lame code, so just focus on it right now. A plus b, okay, and let's say you're just writing console.log c. Now let's say this is a very important code that helps you launch a rocket. Just think it like that, right? This is a very important code right now. So now what will happen? The addition will be printed in this case, right? 79. Simple. Now if I want to write the same code again, what I have to do? I have to write it again. If I want to use it 3 times, write it again. If I want to use it 4 times, write it again, right? So the first problem is I'm writing the same code again and again. That is increasing my lines of code and making it look ugly, making the code editor, making the file look ugly. Now, as I told you, what we can do to solve this, we can actually create functions. So in JavaScript, to create functions, what you have to do is you have to use the function keyword. So you just write function and now give it any name. So basically first you tell, okay, fine, this is going to be a function now. This is going to be a function. That's what you have to tell JavaScript. So function, let's name it add. And again, as I said, right, whenever you create function, like I have told you in earlier also, right, in the first lecture also, wherever you see function, you have found that, right? You have got that round brackets. You have to do the same thing while creating a function. Add rounded brackets or parentheses, and then the block will be inside curly braces. That's how you do it. This is the syntax. Function, the name, round brackets, and then curly braces, and inside that curly braces you'll have your code. Now now remember this thing. This code will be not called automatically. Functions are not called automatically. You have to call them. So that is one of the most important things you have to understand. Right now, this code will be not called automatically because it's a function, it's a block that is there. You have to call it if you want to use it. You have to call it if you want to use it. And to call it, it's very simple. Just go on and write the function name, parenthesis, don't forget it, and add the semicolon. That is not important, but still we add it. And now it will be called 1 times. See? So it's just like you have wrote your code and saved it somewhere. And whenever you want to use it, you just write the name and use that code, right? Now see, you can also go on and call it multiple times. So if you want to call it 4 times, write it like this. So now your code is much more shorter, cleaner, and understandable, right? See, same thing, same output, but a lot less lines of code. Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared? Are we cleared with this concept, everyone? So that's what a function is. It's just like you have stored your code somewhere, and now wherever you need, you just use it. You just don't rewrite it again and again like a very bad coder, right? So that's what it is. Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared with the concept of functions? Okay, that's great. So that's how it is. That's how it is, right? Now, if you compare it, you see this? Why I call that alert is also function. See, this is how you write, right? Whenever you call a function, you have parentheses around it, right? Now, what this says that at some place, alert is also a function. At some place, someone has wrote this. The JavaScript developer has wrote this code for doing alert, right? If we are calling alert and we are getting that pop-up box, that basically means at some place inside the JavaScript library, someone has wrote a code like this: function alert, and whatever code the coder has written to perform, to open that dialog box or to open that alert box, right? Someone somewhere has done this. That's why we are able to call alert function, right? Are we cleared? But why we call it inbuilt? Because we are not writing it. Why we call alert, like why we call alert inbuilt? Because we are not writing it. It is written by someone else, and we are just made available to use it. It is just made available so that we can easily use it. But in this case, this is a function, like add is a function that we have created. That's why you can call it a user defined function, because we have created it, right? Are we clear with this, guys? So I hope you understand the concept of functions now. So we have used alert, prompt, right? Get elements by tag name, it is also a function. Get elements by tag name is also a function. But now there is one thing. This function is really good if I just want to reuse the code. What if I want to change the values of a and b for each and every operation? So every time I call it, I want to change the value of a and b. Every time I call add, I want to change the value of a and b. Now the problem is, let's say if I create the function and I distribute this function to the whole world, right? Okay, fine, everyone can use it. What will happen? Everyone will get the same output. So there will be no use of this add function, right? If I call it, the answer is still 79. If you call it, the answer still will be 79. So the problem is everyone will get 79. So this function is doing addition of two numbers, but it is not good for everyone. Because if I want to add 2 plus 3, why will I call this add function? Because it is fixed, so adding 34 and 45 only. So how to actually make it that good that anyone can in the world can use it? So now functions have one more concept. Functions have a concept of parameters. Function have a concept of parameters. What are parameters? I'll just tell you. When you write a function like this, function and the name of the function and brackets, what you can do is you can pass variables inside these brackets. You can pass variables inside the bracket, inside the parenthesis. Let's say this is the block. Okay. So you can pass variables inside these brackets like this, a comma b, or let's say num1 comma num2, or anything. Now, when I say variable, that basically means it can be a string variable holding a string. It can be a numeric variable holding a number. It can be anything, but that's fine. For now, it is number. Now, you can use these variables. You can use these variables inside the function like this, where or anything, where C, like for anything, for addition, for printing, for anything. So I can just do num1 plus num2. And remember, you can only use these variables inside the function. You can only use these variables inside the function. So variables that you write in the parentheses are known as parameters. Remember this thing. This is very important for all the programming languages. Variables that you write inside the parentheses are known as parameters, and those variables can be only used inside the function. Now, what is the significance? What is the importance? The importance is, let's say this function name is sum f, right? Sum f. The importance of the best, like the significance of this parameters is, wherever you call this sumf function, now what you can do is you can pass values for this variables. You can pass values for this variables. So I can pass like this, 2 comma 3. What will happen? 2 will go in num, 3 will go in num2, and I'm using it inside. That basically means I'm doing 2 plus 3, something like that. Are we cleared? Yes, Phoenix Night Code, that is something we can write, but that's not we are learning here. We can actually write console.log num1 plus num2. But here we are not learning addition of two numbers. Here we are learning the concept of functions, right? Yes, but for normal addition, you can go on and write console.log num1 plus num2. That is totally fine. But addition is not the importance here. We are not here to learn addition in this case. We are here to learn functions, right? So I hope we are clear now, right? Parameters are a kind of variables that can be used inside the function, but the values for them comes from where the function is called. This is very important to understand. Parameters are special kind of variable because they are used inside the function, but the values for them comes from outside, comes from where the function is actually called. Are we cleared? Yes, in JavaScript you don't need to write where in parameters. You don't have to write where in front of parameters. For if it is some other language, in that case you write your type and variable name. But in JavaScript, there's no need to write where uh, as a type for parameters. You don't have to write it, right? So you just have to write the variable name. That's fine. Are we cleared with this, guys? So now let's see if we can do it with the addition part. Let's comment this out, and now let's remove this a and b from here, and let's say create this as a parameter. So now we have a and b as our parameter, and internally I'm directly using the a and b for addition. Okay, and adding it and storing in C and printing the C. Now what we can do is we can just do this 23 plus 45 56. Now whoever is calling it can actually pass any numbers, something like this. And now 23 for the first function call, 23 will go in A, 45 will go in B, and adding and printing it. For the next call, 56 will go in A, 78 will go in B, something like that. Okay, let's see. And here you go, 68, 134, 112, and 112. Okay, that's amazing. But that's fine. 78 plus 34 is also 112. 67 plus 45 is also 112. Are we cleared? Are we cleared, everyone? Sir, can we store a D? Yes, buddy, you can store it. Don't worry. I'm telling you everything. If you know something, don't worry. I'll tell you everything. Don't worry. Are we cleared with this? Okay. Now remember this thing. It's just a naming. These things are called parameters. And while calling the function, when you pass values for that parameters, values here are known as arguments. Values here are known as arguments. Remember this. So when you pass values for a particular parameter, that thing is known as an argument. So in this case, these are arguments. Normally they are values for A and B, but just by calling, there is a name for them. They are known as arguments. So these are parameters and these are arguments. Remember this. That's all. Remember this thing. Paushali, I'll explain you. Don't worry. Don't worry, Paushali. We are still going to do that. Don't worry. For that purpose also, like, we are learning this, right? Aishwarya, you don't have pointers here. We have objects, but we don't have pointers here. So yes, I'm not going to perform that call by reference and call by referee. But yes, exactly. If someday you meet me in Java and C, I'll definitely explain you that call by reference and call by value difference. That is actually a very good topic. Yes, Aditya, you can directly write A and B or whatever name you want. No, in this case, you cannot write same functions having same name. You cannot create them. You cannot create two or more, like two functions having the same name. You cannot do that. That is just a concept of function overloading that is present in object oriented programming when you especially have classes, right? So that is something you cannot do it. Yes, Sagar, I'll explain callback functions. That is a part of advanced JavaScript. So don't worry, buddy. We have that thing, callback functions. But first we are learning functions. Okay, so are we clear with functions? Can we move ahead now? Okay. Now we know what is function. Now let's do one thing. Now see, I'm not calling this function. I'm not calling this function. So basically nothing is getting printed. I'm not calling this function. So nothing is getting printed because this code is just there. It is not getting called, right? Now let's say we don't have an addition code here. Let's say this is just like, okay, do something, a simple function named do something. And let's say it is just printing something like this. Okay. Hello, blah, blah, something like that, right? So this function is there. Okay, this function's whole purpose is just to print hello blah blah. That's all. Let's see. Nothing is getting called, right? Because we haven't called that function. If we just go on and call this function simply like this, now it will be called and hello blah blah will be printed. It's just that code is called. Now I don't want to call this function here. I don't want to call this function in the JavaScript code itself. What I want is I want to call this function on click of a button. So when I click on a button, in that case, this function should be called. When I click on a button, that's what I want here. And that is the whole purpose of learning functions in here in JavaScript. That's why we learned function at the first place. So let's go on and let's create a button here, right? So let's create a button, click me, something like that. So let's see. Now see we have a button. Now what I want is when I click on this button, I want the function to be called. And when the function will be called, blah blah will be printed here. Let's see how to call a function on click of a button, right? Very important part of DOM manipulation, right? So now this thing that I'm teaching you to call a function based on a click or a double click or doing anything by any uh, action that is performed by the user. This whole concept is known as event handling. This is known as a event handling, right, guys? This is known as event handling. Why it is event handling? Whenever a user performs the action on the web page, either it is a click or a select or a select something or the user right clicks, all the actions that a user performs on the web page is known as an event. Please remember this, right? Any action that a user performs on a web page, whether it is a click or a double click or a selection of text or anything by using its mouse or keyboard, that is known as an event. Remember this. So basically this click is nothing but an event, right? So what I want when a user clicks on this button, I want to call that function. So basically I'm handling an event that will be done by a user, right? User will click on the button, so user will perform an event and I'm handling it. I'm doing something on that event, right? I'm performing something on that event. So basically I'm event handling. That's why this concept is known as event handling. User is doing something, that is the event. And when user does something, what am I doing behind it? I'm calling a function. I'm doing something based on that. So that is known as event handling. I'm handling the event performed by the user. That's all. So on click, you just have to call that function, and that's all. Just like you call in JavaScript page, you call it here. Same thing, totally same thing. Name of the function and the brackets, exactly same. Just don't put the semicolon, it is not required here. That's all. Let's see. Now let's see, user will perform the event. Click, and the function is called. That is all, right? So user performed. So whatever the user performs is known as the event. Remember this. Whatever the user performs is known as the event. Wherever the user performs, like in this case on the button, is known as event handler. So in this case, this button is the event handler. Whatever the user performs is the event. On which place the user performs is the event handler. And what happens when the user performs the event is known as event listener, right? So in this case, this function is nothing but an event listener. It is listening to the click event on that button. So user is performing a click event on the button. That button is the event handler, and the thing that is getting called behind, working behind, is known as the event listener, because it gets, what do you call that, right? It gets invoked, something like that. There's a word, right? Invoked, sorry, invoked, not invoked. So this function is getting invoked, active, when the user clicks. That's why it is said that it is listening to that event. When that event is called, I invoke, right? So that's why it is also known as the event listener, but deep down it's just a normal function. That's all, right? Event handling is same everywhere. That's why I just wanted you to understand the whole concept, because a lot of this is one of the more, like, what do you call, toughest topic for people to understand. This event handling, they understand what is event, but they are always confused between event handler and event listener. So remember, whatever the user performs is the event. Wherever it is performed is the event handler, and whoever is sitting behind that will be invoked is event listener. Okay, are we cleared? Are we cleared, everyone? Are we cleared now? Okay, now let's move ahead. Now it's just a function, right? Very basic function. I can do anything inside this. So a lot of people are still asking how to get input from user. Remember, we learned prompt. So actually you should be asking how to get input from user other than prompt, right? Okay, now let's do this. Let's move this code inside the function, fetching the input tag, fetching the input element, right? Let's do this. Console.log. Now this fetching of input element will not be done by default. It will be only done when we click on the function. So when I click, this function will be called, and basically what this function is doing, it will fetch the element, input element for me, and I'm just printing that element on the console. Very simple. The same thing. Till now, we were just printing it normally. Okay, fine. Do it on the load. Now, we are doing it inside the function. So let's do it. Now let's click and see. Click. See, we got the input element here, right? And now we can actually go on and write input dot value. So I'm basically printing the value that is present inside the input. And as you can see, currently the value in input is hello. So basically on click of the button, hello should be printed on the console. Let's see it now. Let's see. Click. See, hello, right? Very simple. Now let's do one more thing. Now see, if I go on and change in the input, now this is the new value, right? This is the new value. When I change something, the value changes. Remember this. Whenever I change something inside the input, the value of the input changes. And now if I again click it, see the new value. If I remove everything and write, okay, let's say ego, the planet, something like that. Click. See, I'm dynamically getting the value. So this is what it is. This is how you get input from user. Very simple, right, guys? Now let's do one thing. Let's remove the default value so that by default the field is blank. So let's remove the default value. That's all. Now let's see. Saurabh. Click Saurabh. Remove this. Thor. Very simple. Are we clear with this? So the whole combination of this function and input is working like this. Basically, the fetching of input element and getting its value is working based on like only when the function is called. Okay, that's how it works. Now, as I was saying you that this value is nothing but the attribute. Now, as I was saying, this value is nothing but the attribute, right? Now, tell me, what are the other attributes for this input element? What other attributes this input element has? Any attribute, name any. What are the, by seeing this code, what are the other attributes this input element is having? Guys, what are the other attributes this input element is having? Right? We have class, we have type, we have ID. And that is what I'm saying. This value is nothing but an attribute. So what I'm saying here is basically, see, I can work with any of its attribute. Once I have fetched the element, I can either perform inner text to change the content, to change the textual content inside that tag. I can either work with inner HTML to change the HTML content inside that tag, and I can either work with any of its attribute that the tag, that the element has, right? Either it can be ID, it can be class, it can be type, it can be placeholder, it can be anything. So in this case, I'm trying to fetch the type. And what is the type of that input element? Text, right? So on the console, I should get text. Let's see. I'm fetching the element. Input is my element. I'm trying to get its type attribute, whatever it is. So in this case, we know that it is text. Let's see. See, it is text now, right? So I can actually work with any attribute. This is what I'm saying you. So once you fetch the element, you can work with dot, got the element, dot, any of its attribute. So it's just like this. You just have to understand. Dot inner text is for the text that is present inside the tag. Dot inner HTML is for HTML plus text inside the tag. Dot any of its attribute. Dot value. If it was a div, I can go for ID and class, right? So based on the element, go for any of its attribute. If it was image, I can go for src. If this element was the image and I have fetched that element, I can go for dot src because src is an attribute of image element, right? Are we cleared, everyone? Can we target input without class name and ID? Yes, by tag name, Pawan Kumar. That's what we learned first, right? Pawan, we can go for tag name, right, Pawan? If we don't want to fetch the input element using class or ID, I can go for tag name. Document.get elements by tag name input. Why not? That is the first thing we learned. Yes, there is no inner HTML in input tag because input tag is an empty tag. There is no closing tag separately for input. We never write something between input and slash input. Input is an empty tag. That's why it does not have any inner HTML or inner text. Just remember this. Empty tags don't have inner text or inner HTML. Right? because we never, like, image is also an empty tag. We don't write anything between image and slash image, right? Images only work with src, height and width, all the attributes. Images don't have a slash image separately, and then you don't write anything in between them. So those are empty tags. The tags which don't have a separate closing are basically empty tags, or the tags in which you don't write anything between opening and closing are also empty tags, and they don't have inner html and inner text. Just remember this. This is what it, like, what makes this thing simple. You just have to understand few things, the very basic concepts, that where to use what. A lot of times people know the code, but they are confused where to apply this. And for that, this is very important. You should just try to learn and understand where things are important. Like, these are the concepts, right? Okay, for input, for empty tags, we're never going to do inner html and inner text. If you just understand this, then you're never going to be use it wrongly, right? You'll never use inner html or inner text for image, because you know it, that that is an empty tag. That's a concept that you have to know. That's all. Okay, are we cleared with this, guys? Are we cleared? Now, one last thing to end it, to end the coding for today, and then you can go for quiz. One last thing, very last thing. I'll actually make something for you that you have seen a lot of times, right? Please, guys, focus now. Focus. Now, let's say in this case, this input type is password, right? And let's also change its ID to pass. Let's remove the class because we are not using it. And let's change it ID to pass, something like that, right? Now, let's do this. Let's, instead of do something, let's say this function is named show password. This function is named show password. In this code, what I'm doing, I'm fetching the input element, right? I'm fetching the input element. And by default, the type of input element is, let's remove this, do something, because we don't need it now. Okay, so now the type of input element is password. That basically means if I write something here, it's a password, right? Now, what I'm going to do here is, inside this show password function, I got the input element. Now I'll change its type. I'll go on and write input dot type. I know that by default it is password. I'll do, okay, make its type text. By using JavaScript, I'm making its type text. Again, same thing. I can set it using the same thing. I can get. If I just write input the type, I can get the type. If I write input the type equal to text, I'm setting the type. That same thing, get and set with the same thing. So it's just where you're writing the equal to. If I just want the type, I'll just write input type. If I want to change the type, I'll write input type input dot type equal to something. That's all. Okay, cool. And now let's do one thing. Let's go on here and call this show password, something like that. And let's, instead of click me, let's just write show. Okay, and yes, also change the ID, right? So let's change it to pass. And now let's see password show. Oh, there's some problem. I think the spelling mistake in the function. Copy this, paste it here. Yes, there was a spelling mistake. Okay, in here I have 3 S's. That is the problem. Remove this. And also remove this from here. I have 3 S's. Spelling mistake. Change it. Now let's do it. Refresh. See, by default, it is input type password. So whatever I write, it will be password. It will be like encoded or hidden. If I click on show, what I'm doing, I'm fetching the input element. Just think about the process. If I click on show, what I'm doing in the function, I'm first fetching the elements, then I'm changing its type to text. Let's see, show. Here you go, right? But this is not the whole thing, right? On website, what happens? You press, till that time you can see. You remove the press, that time it again converts to password. Let's do that actually. It's only one time show. So let's do that. Let's create one more password. One more function actually. Function hide password. It's just a demo that what you can do with JavaScript. Because a lot of people still think that where are we going to use JavaScript? So it's just a very basic demo. Now this is like a very important feature that is present on all the websites, right? And you might have wondered how this is made. See, this is how it's made. Now on hide password, I'm again fetching the input tag, and now I'm again changing the type back to password. So I have a function show password that fetches the element and converts the type to text. And I have one more password hide password that fetches the element and convert its type to password again. And now I'm not going to call it on click, because how the feature works on the actual browsers, when you press and when you keep it pressed, the password is shown. When you remove the mouse press, the password is hidden. So it's not click actually. So what you have to do, it's something like this: on mouse, you have to call on mouse down. On mouse down, show password. So it's an event where you click on a button, like when you click a button using mouse and keep it down, you have clicked it. Like, it's not a click. See, what is click? When you press something and remove, that is click, right? But when you are like keeping it pressed, that is mouse down. So show password. And when you leave it, it's on mouse up. In that case, I'm again hiding it. So hide. So on the same button, we are having two functions. Let's actually make it like this so that you can see it everything in one line. Okay. So on mouse down, show password. On mouse up, hide password. So I'm calling two functions based on two different events on the same button. So now let's try. Let's write something. Let's see. See, I have pressed it. I think you can't see my fingers, but I promise I'm saying the truth. I have pressed it. And now if I remove it, see, password isn't. So this is how it works, right? On the websites, it's just you have, instead of show, you have an eye symbol. That is something that we'll learn afterwards. Don't worry, it's just an image. That's fine. But yes, this is what you have. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, now we can have the quiz.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. So now just go on and take 5 minutes to complete the quiz.
So you have PPT of quiz pin and quiz link.
I'll display it. Wait.
Thank you, sir. Guys, link is in the chat. You can like click the link and take the quiz.
Boys, that save password feature is of your browser. If you don't want that, you can go in the browser settings and change it. That is something that your browser is giving. That save password feature.
So there is a question from HM Classic Cartoon, like the main difference between let and var.
Yes, that I'll explain you in the next lecture, because we don't have that much time now. I want to show you something for that. Like, I
Oh,
can directly tell what is the difference. I want to show you the difference. So in the next
thank you.
lecture, the first thing that I'll show you is the difference between let and var. So don't worry, guys. That will be the first thing that I'll show you in the next session. Now let me find the PPT. And in the next session, I'll also create the project. People asking what about the project? Don't worry, I haven't forget it. It's just for the project, you have to learn few things first. And that's what we are doing. We are learning first, because there is no value of the project if you don't understand it. So to create a project, first you have to understand what are the things that I'm going to write in that project, right? That's why we're learning all these things, so that when I start writing the project, you should easily understand it, right? So even if the project is small, it's just you have to understand it. There is no meaning if I just go on and create a big project, but you're not understanding the code and you're not understanding what I'm doing. You're just seeing the output. There's no meaning for it, right? Even if the project is small, but you should understand everything. That will be a valuable project. That is great. Guys who have completed the quiz, great, great.
Yes, sir. Can we like end the session if they can? Most of them have completed the quiz.
Okay. Just a minute. Asta is asking, but I can see the real password. I think you haven't changed the input type, the default input type for your input tag. Just go and do input type password first. Right, Asta? You have to do input type password. I think you haven't done that. This thing. Make your input type password first. Okay, so I have like, please guys complete it, complete the quiz, and then you can leave for the day, and we'll meet on 27th, right? Okay, and yes, a lot of people asking a lot about JS, like the advanced things. So don't worry, that all the things will be covered in advanced JS, the timer functions and a lot of it, right? So we also have a lot of things to cover in advanced JS. This is just the essentials. So yes, we're going to complete a lot of the timer functions, the callback functions, and we have promises, handling request. Everything will be covered in the advanced JavaScript sessions, right? Okay, and let's meet then on 27th. So bye bye guys. See you on 27th. I hope you enjoyed the session. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for attending the session. Don't forget to fill your attendance. There is no class tomorrow, guys. So don't worry. We'll have on Wednesday on 27th. So thank you, guys. See you on Wednesday. Take care. Thank you, Saurabh sir.
Thank you, Vani. Bye bye guys. See you on 27th.